In this lecture, we are going to start talking about proofs. So before we write proofs, we need some basic language. So in mathematics, we use different kinds of statements and they play different roles. So first, a definition tells us exactly what a word or symbol means. So for example, when we say that an integer is even, that is not something we prove, it is something we define. Now, an axiom is a starting assumption. It is something we accept without proof and then use as a part of the foundation of a mathematical system. So, for example, basic rules of arithmetic are treated this way. And then you have something called a theorem, which is a statement that has been proven. So theorems are not just guesses or examples. They are statements that follow logically from definitions, axioms, and results that we already know before. So for example, later in this lecture or in a different video, we will prove that the sum of two even integers is even. And you may also see words like lemma and corollary pop up. And so a lemma is really just a theorem, but usually it's one that you use as a tool to prove something else. And a corollary is also just a theorem, but it's generally one that follows directly from a previous theorem. And so for this lecture, we're going to use some very basic definitions about integers so that we can then talk about different styles of proofs. For example, we use the following definitions. So we will say an integer is even, so an integer n is even if n can be written as 2 times k for some integer k. So as an example, the number 6 is even, right? So if we take n equal to 6, then it is even, because if you take k equal to 3, then n is equal to 2 times k, right? So 6 is equal to 2 times 3, and so this is the definition of even, right? We also say that an integer is odd if it can be written as 2 times another integer plus 1. So n is odd if it can be written as 2 times some k plus 1. And finally, we say that an integer a divides an integer b, and we write it as a divides b if b can be written as a times k for some integer k. So these are some basic definitions that we will be using in the examples we'll give later on. And these definitions are important because in a proof, we often begin by having to unpack the definitions. So for example, if I tell you that n is even, the definition allows you to write n as 2k for some integer k, and that is usually the first step in a proof involving even numbers. And so that habit of translating words into precise mathematical statements is one of the main skills in writing proofs.